Hello, 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 everyone. It is Brenda Douglas, your self-love and happiness coach, and I am so excited. Let me tell you, I am always searching for self-help books, okay? Especially now since I'm going back to college in the fall. My desire is to become a cognitive behavior therapist, right? So I am searching for self-help books all over the place, okay? And my biggest interest is intimate partner balance, okay? So listen, I clicked on this article today and it was so interesting. It was called The Destructive Dominoes of Domestic Abuse. And yeah, I know, right? Even the title sounds interesting, right? So it was so interesting, and the theory so aligned with my beliefs about domestic violence. I can't wait to share it, guys. But anyway, the article was posted actually on a blog. The blog is called The Domino Principle by Dr. Cliff Kurtzman, right? So it was a pretty interesting article, okay? So in this video, we are going to discuss the findings, or we're going to discuss this dominoes of domestic abuse, okay? So in this video, once again, we're going to discuss that blog, the domino principle, because I thought it was pretty interesting, the purpose of that blog, the principles within that blog. There are 10 principles, and then we're going to define domestic violence, or as they call it now, intimate partner violence. And then we're going to discuss some facts about domestic violence, and then we're going to get into the article called The Dominoes of Domestic Abuse. Now listen, before we go any further, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel and hit that little notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I go live or shoot a video, or upload a video, I should say, okay? Why? Because we want you to join the Self-Love Club, guys, for ways that you can create happiness, for self-love and self-care tips, positive thinking techniques, stress remedies, and ways that you can become a better version of yourself. Now, the Domino Principle blog was created with the idea that challenges and disruptive events are going to happen in our lives, okay, that are beyond our direct control. But unless we take the appropriate action, the consequences for not taking actions will cause a domino effect. Not only for ourselves, but for those around us, okay? Sometimes things happen and we see it as no big deal, right? We see it as no big deal. But listen, we don't always realize that the events of today can set off a chain reaction that could affect our future, either in a good way or a bad way. Okay, so in this blog, there are 10 principles that are used to help us understand the events of today and how they impact our tomorrow, okay? And they give us strategies, okay? Now listen, I'm not going to go into great details about these principles, but I want to quickly share the principles because two of the principles are what the article or the content is based off of, okay? So I'm going to quickly go through the 10 principles, okay? Principle number 1 is deceptive perceptions. Adjust the reality to agree with your own viewpoint. Determine proactivism. Continually strive to be the cause of the future rather than the result of the past. The future can be better than the present, and you have the power to make it to be so, okay? Principle number 3, dance passionately. Never stop dreaming of a better world. Working to bring your dreams to fruition and celebrating the gifts that you already have in your life today. Principle number 4, distress potential. Recognize and take advantage of the fact that there are that the greatest opportunities often come out of the times of crises and distress. Principle number 5, developmental psychohistory. While one cannot foresee the actions of a particular individual, one can apply the law of statistics to predict the general flow of the future events. Discerning predictions. Never underestimate the power of the human stupidity or people's ability to be clever and inventive. Okay. Principle number 7. Excuse me, guys. Disequilibrium propaganda. Understand how and why our world is constantly shifting and can be unstable. Principle number 8. Differing perspectives. Always look at each situation from multiple perspectives and understand how others with opposing viewpoints have reached their position. Principle number 9. Disaster preparation. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And principle number 10, don't panic. Keep your cool and don't try to change the things that are outside of your control. Don't stop believing in yourself and don't succumb to dysfunctional paralysis. Never let fear dictate your future. So those are the 10 principles that pretty much the blog, the domino principle, is based off. So now, the Destructive Dominoes of Domestic Abuse article is based off 2 principles. Principle number 1, which is deceptive perceptions. In other words, adjusting reality to agree with your own viewpoint. And principle number 4, distress potential. Recognize and take advantage of the fact that the greatest opportunities often come out of times of distress and crises. Okay, before we go any further, let me define domestic abuse or domestic violence, or as we call it today, intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence can be defined as a pattern of behaviors in a relationship that is used to gain control, maintain power of an intimate partner. Okay, some facts about domestic abuse and domestic violence is it is learned behavior that can be changed. Okay, domestic abuse can be mental, physical, emotional, social, it can be economic, and it can be sexual. I think I got them all. Yeah. Domestic abuse is rarely isolated, okay, and it's usually escalated. It's very often escalated frequent in its frequency and severity. Okay, so it doesn't always go away. Sometimes it gets worse. Okay, that's what you need to understand. Okay, abusive behaviors are the goal of it is to or the objective is to frighten, to intimidate, to terrorize, to manipulate, to hurt, to humiliate, to blame, to injure, and to wound someone. Okay, domestic abuse, it does not discriminate. Okay, it can happen to anyone of any race, age, sexual orientation, religion, gender, or class. Okay, it can happen to blue class, blue collar, or white collar. It doesn't matter, or what have you. And it can occur within a range of relationships. Couples, married couples, living together, dating, it again does not discriminate. And then lastly, domestic abuse can cultivate, or it can become serious, or actually result in serious injury or even death. All right, and there's one more fact, and that is what my mission is, for people to understand that intimate partner violence is preventable. Okay, so just some quick statistics about intimate partner violence. About 1 in 4 women and nearly 1 in 10 men have experienced intimate partner violence. Over 43 million women and 38 million men have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner. 1 in 5 homicide victims are killed by an intimate partner. 85% of domestic violence victims are women. Women between ages 20 and 24 or to 24 are at greater risk of becoming victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is most likely to take place between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. As many as 324,000 women each year experience intimate partner violence during pregnancy. Boys who witness domestic violence are 2 times as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. Half of women, all homeless women, I should say, and children in the U.S. are fleeing from domestic violence. Every 9 seconds in the U.S., a woman is assaulted, or beaten. In 60% to 80% of intimate partner homicides, no matter which partner was killed, the victim was abused prior to the murder. 19% of domestic violence involves a weapon. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. The presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide. And then lastly, an average of 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. Now, one would have to ask, why do victims stay in abusive relationships? Well, there are many different reasons. It could be that it is financially difficult to leave. It could be that they have nowhere else to live. It could be that they have no outside emotional support. It could be that leaving would cause child care problems. It could be that they take the blame for the abuse. It could be that they're afraid. It could be that they deny, minimize, or rationalize the abuse. It could be that they have low self-esteem or confidence, or it could be that they love the abuser. Our quote for this episode is, don't stay in a relationship or marry him or her unless you would be proud to have a child just like them. Now, in the Destructive Dominoes of Domestic Abuse article by Dr. Clift Kurtzman, remember the 2 principles, the principles of deceptive perceptions and distress potential. Those are the 2 principles that this article is based off of, okay? Dr. Cliff Kurtzman believes what I have been thinking forever, okay? And that is the fact that domestic violence is not caused by stress, mental illness, alcohol, or drugs, nor is it due to the abuser's loss of control over his behavior. The only true cause of domestic violence, according to Dr. Kurtzman, is that the abuser is making a deliberate choice to act violently and or control their intimate partner, okay? I thought that was pretty interesting, okay? And listen, then he goes on to say that you would think that physical abuse is worse than emotional abuse, but actually, on the contrary, emotional abuse is it slowly eats away at the victim's confidence and their self-esteem. Guys, that is so, oh God, that's so true. Emotional abuse causes internal scars. Like physical abuse, you know, it's physical, it's on the outside, what have you, the bruise goes away. But emotional abuse is long term, okay? And it can take even longer to recover from, okay? So, and also emotional abuse usually worsens over time, okay? And then it escalates to the physical, okay? So you just want to be mindful of that, okay? But noticing and acknowledging the signs of an abusive relationship is the first step to ending it, okay? So, So no one can live in fear of the person, or no one should live in fear of the person that they love. Okay, so if you recognize yourself or someone else, know the warning signs of abuse, and then reach out, get out as soon as possible. Okay, don't delay, go as soon as possible. Okay, there is help. There are hotlines out there. There are people on standby. And yes, you have some people who are afraid to get in the middle of domestic violence situations, but there are hotlines out there for you. There's shelters out there that you can go to. Okay, so he goes on to say some of the signs of an abusive relationship. Okay, and one of the signs is that you feel fearful of your partner. Okay, you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around your partner. You're constantly watching what you say and what you do in order to meet their approval. Okay, or to prevent a blow up, right? You are if you so he's saying that if you have those signs, then you are in an unhealthy or an abusive relationship. Okay, and then some other signs are that your partner belittles you or tries to control you or your feelings. They're constantly accusing you of things. They make you feel helpless. Okay, they have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, and what that usually means is that they flip flop between. It's almost like they have two personalities. They act one way and then act another one. Okay, so they can be charming and romantic, and then yet at the same time they can act the quite opposite. Okay. And so they don't see that the whole person is the problem. Okay, they don't see, what they do wrong. There are 10 principles that are used to help us understand the events of today and how they impact our tomorrow. Okay, and they give us strategies. Okay, now listen, I'm not going to go into great details about these principles, but I want to quickly share the principles, because two of the principles are what the article or the content is based off of. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the 10 principles. Okay, principle number 1 is deceptive perceptions. Adjust the reality to agree with your own viewpoint. Determine proactivism. Continually strive to be the cause of the future rather than the result of the past. The future can be better than the present, and you have the power to make it to be so. Okay, principle number 3, dance passionately. Never stop dreaming of a better world. Working to bring your dreams to fruition and celebrating the gifts that you already have in your life today. Principle number 4, distress potential. Recognize and take advantage of the fact that that the greatest opportunities often come out of the times of crises and distress. Principle number 5, developmental psychohistory. While one cannot foresee the actions of a particular individual, one can apply the law of statistics to predict the general flow of the future events. Discerning predictions. Never underestimate the power of the human stupidity or people's ability to be clever and inventive. Okay, principle number 7. Excuse me, guys. Disequilibrium propaganda. Understand how and why our world is constantly shifting and can be unstable. Principle number 8. Differing perspectives. Always look at each situation from multiple perspectives and understand how others with opposing viewpoints have reached their position. Principle number 9. Disaster preparation. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And principle number 10, don't panic. Keep your cool and don't try to change the things that are outside of your control. Don't stop believing in yourself, and don't succumb to dysfunctional paralysis. Never let fear dictate your future. So those are the 10 principles that pretty much the blog, the domino principle, is based off. So Dr. Kurtzman explains the domino effect in play in the sense that the abuser was abused when he was a child or raised in an environment where the family was abusive. It was typical for abuse. And so it causes them to confuse love with pain, okay? And so what happens is that the victim starts accepting the abuse from the abuser and letting him convince her. And we're saying him or her as the victim and him as the abuser because our statistics show that more women abuse than men, okay? But just note that men and women both can be abused or abusers, okay? The shoe can be on both foot, okay, or either foot, I should say. So in this situation, we are posing that the woman is the victim and the man is the abuser only because statistics show that women abuse more than men, okay? So back to the story, back to the article, okay? So so once he starts abusing her, and she starts letting him convince her that she is guilty or worthless, because remember, it's common for him. That's his norm. Everybody has a different norm, right? So abuse is normal for him and has been normal for him since childhood, okay? So again, remember, he confuses love and pain, okay? And so what happens is the abuser typically buries her in a cascade of dominoes, inflicting increasing amounts of control, emotional abuse, and guilt, okay, until she becomes completely unable to dig herself out of the distortion and blame that he keeps putting on her, okay? So she begins to feel trapped, okay, in a situation that will eventually suck everything special and beautiful out of her. Guys, that's a horrible, horrible feeling, okay? And the abuser knows this. He knows that if he if he takes out everything that's exceptional, if he takes away everything that's exceptional to her, that no one else will want her, okay? And so he'll have that hold over her, okay? And it will be complete, okay? But listen, what love actually means, love could mean different things to different people, okay? Because remember, the abuser gets the love and the pain kind of mixed up. Dr. Kurtzman shared that the love in a healthy relationship is nothing like the feeling that the abuser feels towards the victim, okay? Despite their claims that they love you, the abuser is often incapable of feeling any kind of empathy towards others, okay? The abuser acts out of strong compulsion and needs to control his victim. He keeps her under his thumb and treats her in an abusive manner, okay? Love, typically, when you think of love, a healthy love brings out the best in people, okay? And it drives them to act out in kindness and goodness, and you're just happy and you're just wanting to embrace the other person. But abusers act out of hate and sickness. They act out of bitterness and jealousy, okay? The feelings that they have towards their victims are the opposite of love, okay? And then Dr. Kurtzman references an article entitled "What It Means When a Narcissist Says I Love You." Now, in this article, the article talks about the relationship with the narcissist being transactional, okay, like buying and selling. The goal is for the narcissist to get what he wants, the lowest price. It is self-centered. Emotions don't intrude, okay? In relationship with a narcissist, They focus on their goals. Okay, for a male narcissist, it could be sex, or they could have just the fact that they have a beautiful woman by their side. For female narcissists, it may be that they're looking for material gifts or sex or acts of service. Okay, narcissists see relationships as a means to get what they want without any concern for the feelings of the other person. Their only concern is to get what they want out of it. Relationships are used to enhance their ego and to give them value, okay, such as status and power, esteem, or, like I said, sex. It is their only motivation. Okay, narcissists are not interested in you as a person or doing anything for you without some sort of payment. Okay, but listen, stay tuned. We'll talk about that narcissist thing later on in another video, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel. But anyway, Dr. Koosman goes on to say that the victim's perspective is different. The victim's perspective, they confuse feelings of love with Stockholm syndrome, okay, which is a psychological phenomenon in which the hostages express empathy and sympathy and have positive feelings toward their captors, okay, and sometimes to the point where they're defending and identifying with the captors, okay. Victims of abuse typically feel ashamed, humiliated by their abuser, which causes them to have low self-esteem or confidence. Okay, they hide the abuse from family, friends, and from loved ones or those close to them, often to protect the reputation of the abuser. Okay, because of their own shame. The abuser will use tactics to isolate the victim from family and friends and loved ones, okay, especially so that they are not able to help the victim clearly see what the abuser is about. Okay, the abuser will criticize these people and make remarks designed to force the victim to take sides. Okay, and then the victim has to either be for the abuser or against them. Okay, if the abuser feels slighted, then the victim has to take sides and feel maybe befriended if he doesn't. Okay, now this increases control over the victim and their dependence over the abuser. Okay, now abusers often act like bullies in an attempt to cover up their own insecurities. Okay, the personality profile of an abuser could be that they're insecure, needy, distrustful, jealous, needs to be in control, blames their behaviors on others, they threaten and or they become violent. Okay, abusers can be excessively jealous, okay, and controlling, often disguised or excused as concern or an attempt to protect the victim. Okay, they may try to isolate you. Okay, we've already said that. Okay, very rarely will an abusive person easily become hurt or offended. Really, very rarely will they take and accept responsibility for any negative situation or problem, okay? But they will shift the responsibility onto the other person. They will shift the blame onto the other person, okay? People who are being abused may seem afraid and anxious to please their partner. They may go along with everything the partner says and does. They may check in with their partner to report where they are and what they are doing. They may receive frequent and harassing phone calls and texts from their partner. They may talk about their partner's temper or jealousy or possessiveness. Abusers use a variety of different tactics to manipulate their victims and exert power. They may use dominance, which abusive individuals need to feel in charge of the relationship. They may make decisions for the victim. They may tell her what to do and what to wear and expect her to do it or obey without question, because he wants her to think that she is worthless and her opinion is worthless as well. The abuser may non-consensually treat the victim like a servant or a child or even his possession. Okay, an abuser will do everything he can to make the victim feel bad about herself. He will humiliate her. He will make her feel that she's defective in some way. After all, if she believes that she's worthless, then no one else will want her, okay? And she's less likely to leave, okay? The victim or the abuser will insult her or do name calling or shaming or public letdowns, okay? All of these are weapons of abuse designed to erode the victim's self-esteem and make her feel powerless, okay? The abuser will sometimes forgive the victim for things resulting in the abuser's behavior, okay? So he will, in other words, the abuser will place blame on the victim, okay? And then the victim feels guilty about the abuse because the perpetrator has told her that his actions were a result of her behavior, okay? And this is a double effect. It enables the abuser to continue to feel justified and continue in the destructive behavior. And it makes the victim take responsibility for the abuse and also believe that they can change and in some way control the abuse or even stop it. But the reality is that change in the perpetrator or abuser is rare, is sadly rare, okay? Now, rewriting history and projection, domino principle number 1, deceptive perceptions, teaches us that you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. The abuser seeks to prevent the victim from seeing clearly and without distortion at every opportunity. If reality does not correspond to the way the abuser wants the world to be, then the abuser will often change the facts or use them selectively to rewrite history, along with using diversion, deception, and misdirection to manipulate the victim. When abusers defend themselves against their own unpleasant impulses by denying their existence while attributing them to others, it is a distortion technique psychologists call projection. Abusers are often masters of projections, falsely accusing the victim and others around them of the negative behaviors that they engage in themselves, okay? Isolation. In order to increase the victim's dependence on him, an abusive partner will cut her off from the outside world. Oh, my nose is itching. He may keep her from seeing her family and friends or even prevent her from going to work or school. He may have her delete her email accounts and her social media network accounts or restrict access to them by others, okay? She may have permission to do anything, or she may need permission to do anything or go anywhere or see anyone. The abuser will also claim that their relationship with the victim gives them lifelong authority to treat the victim as they please, and that others have absolutely no right to judge their conduct or interfere. The abuser can and do violate the privacy of the victim by tracking their cell phones, the location, looking at phone call records, breaking into their email account, monitoring them on webcam, and putting spyware on their computer or cell phone. The abuser may threaten to kill or hurt the victim, her children, or other family members, or even pets, along with those who may try to help the victim. The abuser may also threaten to commit suicide, file false charges against the victim or others, or report the victim to child services. The abuser may use a variety of intimidation tactics designed to scare the victim into submission. such as using threatening looks or gestures, smashing things in front of her, destroying property, hurting her pets, or putting weapons on display. These are all clear messages that if the victim doesn't obey, there will be violent consequences to pay. Guys, isn't this so interesting? It is so good to be aware of these signs so that you can prevent domestic violence. Guys, it is time for us to stop it. Okay, abusers are very good at making excuses. Okay, they blame their abusive behavior and violent behavior on a bad childhood, on a bad day, and quite often on their victims as well. There is a cycle of domestic abuse. Okay, and the cycle is abuse, guilt, excuses, normal behavior. Abuse, guilt, excuses, and normal behavior. Abuse, guilt, excuses, and normal behavior. Okay? The abuser sometimes begins to fantasize about abusing the victim again. He spends a lot of time thinking about what he has done wrong and how he'll make her pay. Then he makes a plan for turning the fantasy of abuse into reality. He's addicted to drama. Okay, he's addicted to now this abuse has become a normal part of the relationship. Okay, so then he looks for opportunities to stir up this abuse again. Okay, so he sets the victim up and he puts a plan into place. Okay, creating a situation where he can justify abusing her. Okay, the abuser's apologies and loving gestures and between the episodes of abuse can make it difficult to leave. He may make the victim believe that she's the only person to help him, that things will be different this time, and that he truly loves her. Okay, however, the dangers of staying are very, very real. I don't know about you, but this is some interesting information. Oh my goodness. And what's crazy is that a man has the power to either create heaven on earth for you or hell on earth. Okay, it's not worth it, guys, but it is great to be aware. Raise your awareness so that you can prevent domestic violence. Now, here's what's crazy about this whole thing. Abusers are able, and I believe this with my heart, believers are able to control their behavior. They do it all the time, guys. Abusers pick and choose whom they want to abuse. Okay, they don't insult and threaten and assault everyone in their life who gives them grief. They don't. Usually they save their abuse for the people closest to them, the ones they claim that they love, and anyone who might explicitly challenge their ability to inflict continued abuse. Abusers carefully choose when and where and whom to abuse. They control themselves until no one else is around to see their abusive behavior. They may act like everything is fine in public, but lash out instantly as soon as they're alone with their victims. Abusers are often able to stop this abusive behavior when it benefits them. Most abusers are not out of control. In fact, they're able to immediately stop their abusive behavior when it is to their advantage to do so. For example, when the police shows up, or if their boss calls. Violent abusers usually direct their blows where they won't show, rather than acting out mindless rage. Many physically violent abusers carefully aim their kicks and punches where the bruises and marks won't show. Listen, you must speak up. If you are in a domestic violence situation, you must plan your escape. You must make a decision that will benefit you, okay? And that will save your life. There are too many instances of people being killed. And you've heard that I've given you the statistics, guys. You must be careful and you must prevent domestic violence. Now, Domino principle number 4, distress potential, tells us that we should recognize and take advantage of the fact that the greatest opportunities often come out of times of crises and distress. When an abused victim is buried under the fear, the stress, the guilt of an abusive situation, it can be very hard to see a better future, okay? It could be very hard to seek help and to get away from the abuser because the victim is feeling depressed. They could be feeling drained and scared, ashamed and confused. They may think that you will judge them, okay? So they may be afraid or concerned about how you will feel if they find out, okay? But just if you see the signs and you know that they need to get out, they need help. Guys, there are too many people who are writing their obituaries. There are too many people who are in some situations who are afraid that they're going to die, okay? Don't let that be your loved one. Don't let that be the one who is near you, your co-workers, your friends. Don't let that be them, okay? By picking up the warning signs and offering support, you can help them escape to a better life and to begin to heal, okay? So listen, there are things and resources in place to help people who are experiencing this. There are organizations. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That telephone number is 1-800-799-SAFE. Again, the number is 1-800-799-7233. And then there's also a Facebook group. There's a Facebook page, the National Domestic Violence Hotline page, okay? But just listen, be aware that if you have one of those abusers who goes through your phone or what have you, then you want to be mindful and you want to protect yourself and be strategic and you want to be wise about what you do. Sometimes you have to step away from the situation to have a little clarity. Even if you go outside during lunch and sit down and just kind of think your way through and strategy. Sometimes you can feel like it's hard to see your way out. Trust me. And I know, you know, they say when you're in the middle of the storm, it's hard to see what's going on. It's hard to see the sunshine on the other side of that funnel or that tornado or what have you. But at the same time, so that's why you have to depend on the other people on the other side who is not in the midst of the chaos, you know, who is not in the middle of what's going on. Sometimes, like I said, we're ashamed to tell our family members. We don't want them to think bad of him, or we don't want them to judge us. And then also some of us have built a life. We wanted that family. We wanted to be in love, okay? But at the same time, some things are not good for you, okay? Everything that you want is not good for you. And so you have to make a decision that will benefit your life in the long run, okay? So again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-SAFE. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. And I will also put that telephone number in the description. Thank you so much for